Welcome back to Fan Talk. I'm David.
I'm Simon.
And so today we're here to celebrate because Spider-Man's back in the MCU.
They kissed and made up.
Yeah, they kissed and made up.
And signed on the dotted line.
And it is official. The contract has been signed.
Feige is, well, let's break it down. Feige is going to be directing the next Spider-Man, or producing the next Spider-Man movie.
Yes.
Which means back in the MCU, creative control, we can figure out what happened to Spider-Man after he was outed. That's just not going to go away as being a cliffhanger.
Happy can keep dating Aunt May.
Yeah.
So basically how it breaks down is the original contract. I mean, we could go into all the details, but it is really a battle over money. Which
when it came time to renegotiate, Disney came in high saying we want to finance 50% and get a 50% profit. Sony was like, no, there's other details to that too. Long story short, somebody decided to take this public and see how the fans would react and use kind of the fans as leverage, which, has also made for some good news and some good talk shows for quite a long time. The fans spoke out. I think Disney had a very good advantage on this because they had the D23 Expo at the same time period. Yeah. Holland was there. I think they played the whole thing pretty well. They finally settled at approximately 25% financing and 25% return on profits. And then also Feige producing. I'm sure Spider-Man will be appearing in another Spider-Man will be appearing in at least one more Marvel movie. And we'll sing back to that, our thoughts on that. And then also cover the new gray line on the MCU here.
Yeah, which we'll cover that. I'm super excited though, because I had actually resigned myself to the fact that it was probably not going to happen until later down the line. We both said the money's too good. At some point, these two guys are going to come back together. But I really thought the next Spider-Man movie, it wasn't going to happen. And I was really disappointed because there was so much set up in Far From Home.
Oh, the cliffhanger.
With the cliffhanger. But even if they kept that script and kept going with it, how do all of a sudden you explain away Happy? How do you go from having Iron Man kind of as a background worship character in this to not being able to mention him at all? The blip even, it's that was an important part, and now they can't even mention the blip.
I'm sure they'd probably just do their own thing and leave that one just hanging.
Well, but when you start doing that, it starts tearing away at the story. You know what I'm saying?
I'm saying I'm sure they'll just do a soft reboot and then just sort of okay, here's our Tom Holland Spider-Man movies.
Yeah. But I'm super excited about this, as a lot of other people.
So tell the audience about how Spider-Man can appear in movies.
Okay, yeah. So basically, there's been a lot of controversy and a lot of people talking about this. You have to really look at the interview where Feige is talking about it, where he actually mentions that Spider-Man's greatest superpower is his ability to cross both universes and being the only superhero to do it right now. And he also states that with the introduction of the Spider-Verse and the multiverse, that we'll see what happens in the future. But secretly, behind closed doors, from what we understand... part of the conversation. Yes, but it was actually discussed that part of the contract deal is that Sony was disappointed in the past because they, were trying to make big money off of the rest of their Spider-Man investments, such as Venom and... Morbius, and a lot of other Spider-Man villains,
all Spider content.
Anything Spider content, including them talking about making a Madam Web movie, and also possibly a live action into the Spider-Verse film.
Spider-Girl,
there's all kinds of stuff they can do with it.
But they couldn't put their hero in any of them.
They couldn't put their hero in any of them. Spider-Man was not allowed, under the original contract, to be in a Venom movie, or Morbius movie, or a Spider-Girl movie. They couldn't do that.
All they could do was the animated Spider-Verse because that wasn't Tom Holland's Spider-Man.
Exactly. And then on top of that, those characters could never be mentioned by Spider-Man because that was really its own thing. Well, now what they're saying...
It loosened it.
So now Tom Holland is now able to go ahead and be in these other movies, which it strongly suggested that he's probably going to at least make a cameo in the Venom 2 film and possibly even the Morbius film, since they are enemies.
Now, so these won't technically be MCU by extension.
They will not be MCU. This universe is two separate universes. But here's the kicker, okay? Spider-Man can't be in like a Marvel movie and be talking about like, oh yeah, I was fighting this Venom guy, whatever.
Yeah.
But whenever he is in a Spider-Man movie, there can be little cameos and such, and it's not a big deal. It's kind of basically be left to the fans to decide.
He could be talking to Happy and be like, you would not believe this Venom guy I talked to. Then, but Happy then can't go over to Marvel Marvel one and say anything about it.
Yeah, well, and then also it makes sense. It's really kind of for the fans. It's like you're watching a Spider-Man movie, a Venom movie, and you got Spider-Man and Venom, and you're like, man, this is awesome. It's Tom Holland. This is a great film, right? And then Spider-Man's over here and a movie with Captain Marvel. Well, I mean, even in the comic books, Spider-Man, he goes and helps the Fantastic Four. He's not sitting there gossiping about his last battle with the Sinister Six, right? So as the fans, you get to enjoy Tom Holland and Spider-Man in all these movies, and it's kind of up to you if you want to cross them over. And also, anything that happens and is mentioned, if anything else, you can always write it back to with the multiverse and everything that's happened. This could actually be a different timeline.
So the studios probably don't need to actually say like, okay, this is part of it, this one isn't. But that's up to the fans to decide. And I think as fans, we've had this plenty of times before on other things. Like there has been like obviously with Star Trek, it's only canon if it's on screen.
Yeah.
However, the books have various levels of canonness, depending on the fan, and then also what's behind it. Because there's been several books that have been written by the actors of certain characters that have a huge insight into the character, the background, and what's going into it. Might not be canon. It's very easy to imagine that as canon, especially when it has like endorsement of like the producers of the shows and stuff. Like Andrew Robinson's played Garrick, and he wrote a novel about Garrick's background, which for all intents and purposes is canon because it's not doesn't contradict anything in the show.
Yep.
And it's written by the actor that played him.
Like the Star Wars books was that way too. It's like for a long time, a lot of that stuff was basically considered canon as long as it didn't interact or interfere with actual canon,
right?
And with this, I mean, it's going to be one of those things where we're just going to get to enjoy Tom Holland as Spider-Man and a lot more,
and just let the fans decide on.
Yeah, and the thing is as Feige also said, he said, and we'll see what the future holds. What the future holds is there could be the possibility on these characters crossing over if it suits them. If it comes at some point in time where Feige's like, you know what? I really want to use this character. We should incorporate this character. We should try and do this. We could do a bigger crossover. At some point, we might see a huge crossover, and it could be really fun. And they're saying that right now it's on the table.
Can I see a Deadpool Venom crossover?
That would be interesting. I would like actually what I really want to see, which is funny because if you look at Ryan Reynolds' tweets, I follow Ryan Reynolds, and he was very excited about this, and a lot of it is because Deadpool is like he's a loved character, but in comic books, the characters, he's a hated individual because he's insane, he's unpredictable, he's he's a hero for hire, so he's always screwing things up. He doesn't really have any friends. The only real friend he has is Cable and Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Him and Spider-Man are like besties. Let's say Deadpool's gone on record saying he's the one person in the Marvel Universe he'll bend over backwards to help. Like they're buddies. Even Spider-Man has his moments where he's like, I need a break, but they're buddies. So I know that Ryan Reynolds is thinking how awesome it would be at some point to see a Spider-Man Deadpool movie. There's a whole series of comics. It's very much a bromance in the comic books, and it could be a really fun movie.
And they could use this as one of the alternate multiverses of how Spider-Man meets up with Deadpool from the X-Men without actually having to bring the whole X-Men universe into the MCU.
Yeah. Well, it also is a way to play down Deadpool. We've seen a lot of, that RRR. You could pull in the witty comedy of Peter Parker, which in the comics is very witty, very, charming, obnoxious. He's obnoxious, but Deadpool's like that, the more extreme. You could actually tone it down and have those two bouncing off each other, having a lot of fun, and still keep it PG-13, and you get the fans wrapped up in that, and then you go from that movie back into another Deadpool movie. It's a little bit lighter. Maybe people aren't as like, wait a minute, because they just came off a Spider-Man film and they're stoked about it.
Here, how about this pitch? Spider-Man is going through. He can kind of go through these different multiverses, and he can meet up these different characters, and so he meets up with Deadpool from the X-Men franchise, and they go through whatever portal back to the MCU universe.
Well,
and
yeah.
that's how they bring it in.
I mean, there's all kinds of things you can do. The one thing I'm excited about is they're actually talking about doing a Into the Spider-Verse live action, which I mean, you and me have talked about. I mean, that could be a really fun film. Into the Spider-Verse already getting a sequel on the animated side, which was beautifully done. It's some of the just most amazing animation to watch. It was fantastic. I'm excited about it. On the other side of that, I would love to see Into the Spider-Verse live action with Tom Holland. And we were even talking about how fun it would be to bring back some of those old Spider-Mans, like
McGuire,
bring
Garfield.
back McGuire, Garfield. Have McGuire be like the overweight,
the slubby one.
Yeah, there's just like things have gone wrong. Him and Mary Jane have broke up. He's just like, oh, I think that he could play that role great, and it would be just such a one of those things is just dealing it out to the fans, just giving some real fan service,
bringing all the Spider-Man together and like unite the clans.
But I mean, we'll see what happens. But the big thing is that we've got the MCU and Spider-Man.
I've been kind of like not down, but. I don't even want to say a lot more pessimistic. I've just been thinking, been pessimistic about the future of the MCU the last few weeks.
I have too.
Between Spider-Man, some other things been hearing about. I'm like, maybe the best times are now behind, but this is a step back in the right direction.
Just step back in the right direction. It's something that gets you excited again. I think that Disney needed this. I won't lie. I know that this deal probably in the way worked out really well for Disney, maybe more so than for Fox. We'll see. Sony, yeah. But we'll see down the road. But I will say this. I think this is a big win for Disney in the aspect of, on top of the Star Wars and all the angry fans and that franchise, there's a lot of beef right now between the fans and Disney over the whole Star Wars franchise. And then they lost Spider-Man, and a lot of people...
And they ended Iron Man.
Yeah, whether or not it was Disney's fault... Between the Star Wars thing, you got a lot of people, if you're looking at like who's blaming who, more people are blaming Disney for that's not going through than they were for Sony, I think.
And the thing is, here's the way I'm looking at it. Neither one is the good corporation versus the evil corporation.
Right, no.
But people have been lining up thinking Disney's like this big old master evil corporation that's behind everything. But at the end of the day, I just want to see the characters together.
Yeah.
I think Disney played a shrewd negotiation. It worked out. It's over. It's done. Everyone's back and happy again.
Everybody's back and happy. But I think it's a really big win for Disney because I think that, they got Spider-Man back. And like you said, I was the same way. I was really kind of getting pessimistic. I was kind of starting to worry. I'm hearing a lot of other things about them changing characters around and how they may or may not introduce the X-Men, how this, New Mutants film may or may not come out. And when it does, how it's going to... whether canon or not. And there's a lot of things, even the characters that they're using, where I'm excited, but on the same note, it's like you said, maybe the best is behind us. And something about having Spider-Man back and in the mix, it kind of gets you back.
That little ray of hope again.
Yeah, it kind of gets you back up being excited about it.
Before this, I'm thinking okay, Disney needs to buy out the Stranger Things from Netflix and then put 11 as a New Mutant. I'm just kidding. We're going down a weird turn on there. No, one other thing is that Spider-Man's going to be in another Spider-Man's going to be in another Marvel movie.
Yes.
And so what we know is what's been confirmed in Phase 4 so far. What are some thoughts on which one he could appear in? Because my first thought was the Doctor Strange movie.
Multiverse of Madness.
Multiverse of Madness.
Multiverse of Madness.
They had some kind of good on-screen time together in the.
They did, and to tell you the truth, I'm not really sure where they're going to go with it yet. I mean, some of this stuff's already started.
I think it'd be a little weird to put him in Guardians or Thor because it's off-world. What else is there? I think. The Black Widow, not really.
Well, it's already wrapped on filming.
Yeah.
It's pretty much done, from what I understand. Now, I'm thinking though we're talking about another Marvel movie.
Doctor Strange makes the most sense.
But I mean, it might not even be this year. I mean, he could actually be in a 2020 or 2021 film.
All these are I mean, they have this slate list for the next 2 years or so listed
out.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would say that more than likely we're going to see him on, like you said, not a space-faring one. So probably not Thor or Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm guessing Doctor Strange would be a good bet. I know that there was originally a talk about him and Miss Davers pairing up, Captain Marvel. So that could be a good way of softening her up and getting her back on Earth for some reason.
Getting her back into fans' graces.
But it's kind of funny. I was thinking about this the other day about all the hate on Captain Marvel. It actually isn't just the movies. If you think about it, it's in the comics too. because Captain Marvel was in Civil War II. Civil War II, she basically takes the role that Iron Man took in the original Civil War, where she's like, superheroes bad, you know? And, Iron Man basically has kind of learned from his old ways, and he's taken the role that, Cap took initially. And so, in that series of comics, I mean, she does a lot of things that makes fans just, it's hard to come back from, up to and including beating Tony Stark into a coma. I mean, she does some pretty vile things in that series, trying to do what she thinks is right. But it's like with any storyline, if you make somebody go down that rabbit hole dark enough, it's hard to bring that character back.
Especially all at once.
Yeah. It takes a time for the fans to start liking them again, Yeah. So
maybe they'll have Spidey appear in one of the Disney Plus TV shows, like, Cap and Falcon.
Yeah.
That could be a good little cameo for an episode.
But we'll see. I'm willing to bet that we're going to see more and more Spider-Man in the MCU, and vice versa. I think the Spider-Man movie, we know that there's at least 2 more Spider-Man movies being made. We're going to see a lot more Marvel characters there. And, we'll just see what happens. But all in all, it's a good week for Marvel fans.
Okay. Well, I want to end with 2 last little house cleaning things. One, shout out to Angry Welshman for calling us out on missing a little bit of the Picard trailer. My best guess is we wouldn't have just cut it off, and I don't think we found one that was missing. I think best guess is the internet, lied for a split second. I thought it was over. Anyway, we did see the end of it finally. We didn't put it in the video because it would have just made everything be thrown off. But yes, it was awesome to see Data interacting with Picard. Thank you, Angry Welshman, for being the first to call us out on that. Secondly, and a little bit more somber, shout out to the family of Aron Eisenberg. Who played Nog on Deep Space Nine. Mm-hmm. He passed away a few days ago, age 50. Obviously, sympathies to his family and friends. He didn't do a whole lot else in entertainment except for Nog. A few small projects, but as far as just big things that people had known, Deep Space Nine was it. He took a very just kind of throwaway small character, and they built up a lot of these kind of characters in the show where they took these small characters and made this huge secondary cast.
Yeah.
And he was one of them. He played it with gusto, did a great job as a Ferengi, kind of grew up with him on the show, and he ended up being the first Ferengi in Starfleet.
Yeah.
And I think he even... it's been a while since I've watched it. The character's leg, I think, was either amputated or he ended up with a pretty serious medical thing.
It's been so long since I've watched all that series.
I know. I don't kind of take another look at that now, thinking about it. But I always liked him in the series. That show had a bunch of good casts on it, and he was no exception. So anyway, sorry to hear about his passing.
Yeah. Well, folks, thanks again for tuning in, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave some comments down below about what you think about Spider-Man and being back in the MCU, what movie you think we might see him in the MCU, and tell me what you think about the possibility of crossing over of other characters from Spider-Verse into possible MCU movies, if you think that that's a good idea or not.
All right. Till next time. Thanks.